Happy Wednesday, everybody. We are now just 2 days out from the beginning of the event week, which will start off with Saturn's entrance into Aries, and that will begin this Friday. And then Saturn and Neptune will be moving towards an exact conjunction, which will occur on the 20th. And as I've mentioned, throughout this week, this kind of huge event week, this new era is being birthed. We will have the Chinese New Year on the 17th, as well as the new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius. So I'll be talking about each of these events as we go through them. But the pressure is definitely building. As I posted in my last update, we are basically like a week away at this point. I forget what the date is today. I think it's the 11th. So we're about 6 days, a week out from the year of the fire horse beginning, right? So remember, we are in the universal 1 year already, but we are still in the tail end of the snake. And this is really interesting considering that Saturn is also sitting at the 29th degree and like later seconds of Pisces, right? So Saturn's preparing to officially move out of Pisces in 2 days while we wrap up the snake year. So this is like very karmic energy. This is kind of like these last couple of days here. It's so karmic. And, I like to view karma as it's not, yes, I mean, I know we kind of always view it as whatever we put out comes back, right? And in many ways, that is true. That is the nature of karma. But I view karma as its own energy force. And it is what goes around comes around. That is absolutely true. But it's also this divine correction type of force, right? It's also like, we will have a reflection in our external world to reflect to us what we've chosen, right? And so with Saturn, especially in Pisces, Saturn right now at this 29th degree and at the tail end of the snake shedding is delivering to us what we have chosen on an energetic level. So sometimes I think we misperceive, Saturn's very karmic, right? And so whenever he transits through signs, it's almost like the flavor of karma changes, where, and it's something interesting I might even dive into, but, looking at Saturn moving through every archetype of the zodiac, that's all the different facets of karma and how it works. Right. And so with Saturn and Pisces, this is about energetic karma. This is about spiritual karma. So what I mean by that is there's a lot of times where we could be doing something physically, but our energy is saying something else, right? We have a certain persona, we're taking certain actions, we're doing certain things out in the world, but our energy and our consciousness are saying something different. And so the beauty of that is that Saturn in Pisces is giving us what we've chosen energetically. This doesn't necessarily mean that if there's anything that has been falling away or changing or opening up as far as opportunities or anything like that, if anything's going to be coming about, right, through the next couple of days, and also, of course, for the next week during this conjunction, it's not necessarily a direct reflection of what you've done. It's a direct reflection of what you've chosen on a spiritual level. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have been working a particular job, a career, a role, right? And you love it. You might enjoy it. You keep doing it because it has been called to you, because it financially supports you, because you enjoy it. And you've just kept on with that. But energetically, maybe you have decided within yourself that you want to really be valued for your worth. Maybe you felt like you weren't being valued by people or environments in your life. Maybe your soul has decided that you're ready for something bigger. You're ready for something that is more of a challenge, or you're ready for something that is more spiritually aligned for you. Your actions are saying, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I am keeping on because right now this is what serves me. This is what's good for me. But on an energy level, you've actually chosen something else. And so all of a sudden, you could quit that job, or you could get fired from that job, or all of a sudden you get promoted to a different role, or all of a sudden you get this opportunity to go do something completely different, or all of a sudden you feel this urge within yourself to go in this completely different direction. That is the nature of karma as well. It is literally a reflection of what is inside, especially when we're talking about Saturn and Pisces. So a lot of you have done a lot of amazing spiritual work over the past couple of years since we've had Saturn in Pisces. And on an energy level, and on a spiritual level, and a consciousness level, you have made certain decisions within yourself. And those are now going to get reflected to you externally. Okay. And so, like I said, this can sometimes be really positive and amazing. You will get what you've decided. You will get what you've spiritually earned. And then, of course, for others who are unconscious and haven't really developed that consciousness, they haven't really tuned into the soul, they haven't been doing their energetic work or their spiritual work, they may suddenly be presented with the reality that reflects that. So that's kind of what we're in now. We're at the very tail end of a very deep karmic reckoning. And as Saturn moves into Aries, we will move on to a different type of karmic evolution. And Saturn in Aries has everything to do with who you are and what you're here to do. And so that will be a very different era where, karmically speaking, it is about what you are embodying. It is about the living, breathing embodiment of who you are and who you believe you are. That's what's going to get reflected. Also, because Aries has a lot to do with action, there it will be, you get what you do. You will get back from the world how much action you take, what you physically do, and how you embody the energy. And so we'll be moving on to a different era, right? So this is kind of a really, really, pressurized. There's a heavy weighted feeling right now. And I think that will start to ease up over this weekend. And then certainly next week, we will be in some serious activation energy. But I thought that we would go through activating Gene Key 9 today. And Gene Key 9 is actually one of the gene keys that is part of the current incarnation cross. So I did mention this in my most recent seminar, but we will be covering this more in depth later this year. Is beginning in 2027, but I honestly do believe it's coming in now. It will probably be solidified in 2027, is a new incarnation cross, which in human design occurs about every 400 years. We enter basically a different blueprint of the collective. And so we have been, since the 1600s, the year 1615, we have been in the cross of planning. And it was a tribal cross. So as you can imagine, our kind of entire collective modality and way of operating has been to plan, to plan and logistics and analyzing. And it was a tribal cross. So it was all about creating systems and structures and societal modalities, right, that required everyone to work together as kind of a tribe, right? And we are now going to be moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And that is an individual cross. It has nothing to do with your tribe, nothing to do with collectivism, nothing to do with groups. It is about you and you only. Now, Gene Key 9 was in the cross of planning. So this one's actually interesting because this is what we're moving out of, but I think important to activate this and kind of be in the gift zone of this previous cross, right? And so Gene Key 9, the shadow is inertia. And Richard Rudd says that there is a famous Chinese sage named Lao Tzu who said that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Although a more accurate translation might be, the journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath one's feet. This piece of timeless wisdom concerns focusing on what lies right in front of you, rather than concerning with where the future might or might not take you. The ninth shadow is about where you place your focus and primarily your daily activity. There is something magical about this gene key, and it holds one of the greatest secrets, which is how to stop your mind from undermining your natural destiny. He says the shadow of this gene key is the stepping stones go in a circle, so that as you look down at each step, you fail to realize that you are simply following the same old footprints and your energy is going nowhere. He says you do not know where they are going, but it doesn't matter. You know that the path is leading you forward. This makes every step you take all important. This gene key is about finding the right activities in your daily life. Every step must lead you in the direction of your dreams, whatever they might be. Without a sense of higher purpose, human beings tend to move in circles, creating energy fields that actually prevent abundance. He says every time you allow life to leave you bored or indifferent, you are in inertia. The inertia of the shadow feeds off of the victim mind, which also goes round and round in its patterns of blaming or worrying. He says, in our hearts, however, all humans are natural rebels. We are wild creatures. We are not here to have our dreams tamed or domesticated. We are here to make magic happen. And we cannot do that unless our every waking moment is directed and focused towards a single overreaching vision or ideal. He says, this shadow will suck all the hope and enthusiasm out of you. When you do not see immediate results and improvement, it takes you away from the focus and fulfillment of the moment, and it disturbs your concentration. He says, one of the modern expressions of this shadow is an addiction to details and trappings extraneous and unnecessary to our lives. The energy field around this shadow is a very intense cloud under which many humans are stuck. This creates a huge drain on the physical body, as lack of enthusiasm leads to a lack of energy. You may even believe that you are taking steps to change, when in fact, all you are doing is going around in circles. You are still focused on details that are essentially irrelevant. The only way out of this field of inertia is to punch through it with one huge act of will. The first step out of the victim frequency resets your course onto a path that leads ahead rather than around. This shadow deeply affects the energy systems, closing them down to higher voltages and cosmic high frequency energy. It has an adverse jamming effect on your directional guidance system, which is your heart. If your heart is not behind your every act, not only do you choose an inappropriate course of life, but you also wear down your health. And he says all of this energy needs to find a higher purpose, something it can serve that takes you beyond the mundane world and all of its details. Now, very interesting that in this shadow, he says it closes down the energy systems of the body, closing them down to higher voltages. If you guys remember, in my January energy report, I wrote that this was the year of the higher voltage. And I think it's due to all of the factors we have going on this year, the heavy Aries energy, Uranus and Gemini, the one, the fire horse, etc. But we are also, again, as I said, closing out this old incarnation cross. And a lot of this incarnation cross of planning that we're exiting, right, really comes down right to there, right to that sentence. We have closed down our energy systems to higher voltage. And the rest of the gene keys in this cross of planning, by the way, one of which is gene key 40, which happens to be one of the 7 seals. Now, the shadow of gene key 40 is exhaustion. So if we look at the past 400 years, right, we have basically, we were shoved into this very small human experience where we were totally entrapped in just living these mundane day-to-day lives that had virtually no meaning. We were exhausted. We were bored in many ways. We were just doing the same things over and over and over and really not getting anywhere. We've been essentially in a closed loop of very low energy. And it seems like we just couldn't escape it. And now, as all of this new energy this year comes in and this higher voltage, like it says, in order to exit this kind of victim mentality where this shadow keeps us in a constant loop of just blaming or worrying, that's all our lives are. Blaming this person and that person or these people or this outside factor for what's wrong with our lives, or we're simply worrying. We're constantly worrying about what's going on, right? And it says this shadow keeps us locked into these trivial details that are completely irrelevant. I mean, just look at most of our daily lives, not recently, because, the spiritual awakening has changed a lot of that. But previously, it was like all we do is talk about nonsense, just talk about news and the weather and information that is literally pointless in terms of the spiritual experience, right? And we're just stuck. We're just completely stuck. And it's going to take this huge force of will, which that really aligns to the fire horse, the one, and the Aries energy, to break out of this mundane, stagnant energy and to really jump into the new voltage, into the new cosmic wave here. So this brings us to the gift of Gene Key 9, which is determination. And Richard Rudd says that the gift of determination is built upon the rock of the very smallest acts. Wherever you look, this gene key points to the same truth. A person without an ideal burning inside of them is essentially destined to remain a follower of the crowd. But the power of the ninth gift is the power of repetition. This gift creates a groove, and once the groove is dug, all energy in your life will follow the same pattern. He says, when you break out of the lower frequency and you connect with your vision or ideal as a feeling and a knowing deep inside, you have truly begun the journey of 1,000 steps. Every single step you take from that moment on, no matter how inconsequential the act may seem, will lead to the direction of your core vision. The strange thing about the gift of determination is that the more determined you become, the less energy and willpower you actually have to use. The secret of determination is about momentum. That's another huge theme of this year. All those little acts done with the heart begin to build up an inner momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. The force of the entire universe begins to gather behind such a person. It is only at the beginning that you have to use great force. Those first few steps out of the shadow frequency take enormous strength of will and courage. This gift reveals the more you tread the path of the heart, the easier it gets. This gift has an important connection to magnetism. Your true course in this life is already predetermined. All you have to do is find it and follow it. And then he says, let's see. Not The radical shifts in your mental functioning will further serve to streamline the course of your life. You will begin to let go of your mental constructs, your opinions, your fears, your beliefs, and even your hopes. And so I think this is really interesting because another one of the themes of this year is momentum. And again, I'm kind of looking at everything that we're in right now, this shift into this new creational cycle, right? Represented by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries, the inception point, the universal one, the fire horse, the ending of an old incarnation cross. It feels to me very much like the work that everyone has done spiritually to really get into these gift frequencies. Again, you will now reap the rewards of that. Everything has felt slow. Everything has felt hard. It was pushing a rock or a boulder up a mountain. And this year, everyone who has actually done that work and didn't give up and had the perseverance will be gifted the blessing of the momentum, of the opportunities, of the reflections in their outer world of the work that they have put in. And then you will see many who they haven't begun yet. They have to start at the beginning now. They have to take that extremely large leap of faith, an act of self-will, to start entering their awakening and healing and transformation process. And so, I think that this gene key really just kind of stood out to me as like this cross of planning. If we've mastered it, is going to propel us into this new era. We will be given this blessing of the wind under our wings, so to speak, while many might struggle to get off the ground because they haven't begun the real work yet, right? And it doesn't matter where anybody is at. Everybody's going to go through the process. But I thought this was a great confirm of for those that have been determined, for those that put one step in front of the other and never lost sight of the vision, congratulations. And this leads to the 9th Siddhi, which is called invincibility. And he says, the smaller something becomes, the more condensed the universal energy within it. He said, there is one final surprise waiting for us within this 9th gene key. The 9th Siddhi is about the power of the infinite, the infinitely small. It is a paradox. If one goes on dividing a piece of string in half, one could theoretically go on forever. Thus, the infinite becomes the boundless inner space that leads to outer space. Outer space becomes inner space. Time becomes infinite, yet absolutely present. All boundaries are absorbed by consciousness in itself. Invincibility can therefore be defined as the merging of your individual awareness back into the consciousness of the universe. To be invincible is to surrender to all possible foes by dissolving your entire reality into them. To be invincible is to be invisible, and vice versa. Invincibility means to dissolve into the will of the universe. The only force in the universe that is truly invincible is love. Love knows only giving, so it creates a vacuum which in turn continuously floods with more love. And then he says, the 9th Siddhi teaches us today that every act you make is of vast importance to the whole of evolution. If your life takes on a cosmic focus, then life itself will intensify within you, moving you naturally into a far more cooperative pattern. Every intentional act is a magical act, setting in motion a force of creativity or a force of decay. Whenever you stand at the beginning of the journey, it is the first step that sets the tone for the entire journey. After a few steps, it becomes very difficult to change your direction, since that involves wrenching yourself out of your existing groove and creating a new one. Therefore, whenever you reach a natural beginning of a new cycle, even a new year, You would do well to remember this truth. Those first few steps are critical to your evolution in the time ahead. You must capture the energy of your dream and hold it deep inside, because it is that dream that will act as the lens to focus the power of magic and manifestation in your life. So I leave you all with that, as especially this weekend during this conjunction, I feel it would be really fantastic. My guidance is for everyone to take some moments, especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and really sit down with yourself. And you can journal, you can meditate, you can visualize, whatever, draw, paint. What is the vision? What is the dream? What are you wanting to create in this next cycle? Have it at the core of your being. And whatever steps we take this week, again, doesn't have to be huge, monumental leaps. It's just like it's saying a small intentional act. That could be a ceremony, that could be journaling, that could be saying an affirmation out loud, that could be drawing a picture that encapsulates your vision and, looking at that picture often. It is whatever the small intentional act that we do at the beginning of this new cycle is what will set us up for the next cycle. It's the dream that we want to move into. And hopefully in the next 2 days, it becomes really clear what that is. So love you guys. Happy almost conjunction. And I will be back soon with some more updates on our next events.